I just hit a blank spot. Can someone please tell me what day this is or what, you know, somebody
Louise,
help me out.
let me help you out here. Hi, I'm Debbie G from Schaumburg, Illinois, alcoholic. And today, this very day, across the world, is Marvelous Monday, everyone. Welcome.
My name is Luis. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May the 7th of 2020. Welcome, everyone, to today's Threads of Recovery workshop. I've stated that I am an alcoholic. Do we have any other alcoholics in the meeting today? Hmm. Acknowledging God's presence with a moment of silence, I'll follow that with the set aside prayer. Lord, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything that I think I know about myself, everything that I think I know about my fellows, everything that I think I know about my own recovery for a much needed new experience in you, myself, and my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Help me to see the truth. Amen. 1058 Threads of Recovery continues to offer 3 days of virtual workshops a week. To be included in our weekly email, send your request to threads1058@gmail.com. This will keep you up to date on our workshops. Our group follows the 12 traditions. We stick to our singleness of purpose. We ask that everyone please refrain from profanity when sharing and any activity that may distract our speaker or others during the meeting. Please turn your camera on if at all possible. Again, we love to see your smiling face. The 7 tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The contributions help to cover the group's expenses. But the 7th tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other group expenses. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization at every level remains forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. And we're going through a transition right now with our 7th tradition. And Debbie, you have an announcement on that?
Thank you, Louise. I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm currently your group's treasurer. And we have changed our electronic contribution platform. So we're going through a vendor called Online Home Group. And anyway, when you click that link, it'll give you like 8 different payment methods that you will be able to use. There's Venmo, Zelle, Bill Pay, Apple Pay, Cash App, blah, 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 right? So anyway, you get to choose. And the one thing that I really love about this is that it takes the anonymity back into the 7th tradition because they are now handling who gave what. We can connect you back with a confirmation number so we can still reconcile easily. But anyway, so you can support the group, stay anonymous, and participate in the 7th tradition, a spiritual connection. And I would say one thing, if you do use Venmo, we ask that in the notes you just put TOR for Threads of Recovery, TOR 1058, and that will automate it to our group. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Debbie. This is an open meeting. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics are welcome to attend as observers. And now it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Bill H., who is taking us through the journey again through the big book, and I believe we're on step 5. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Luis. My name is Bill. I am an alcoholic. Once again, happy birthday, Marcus. Thank you for sharing your recovery with us. A special welcome to my friend Steve V. Nice you're up and about enough to be with us, and so good to see the Sis House back in the room. And everyone else, I know how sensitive we are. I don't want you to think I'm overlooking you, special you. Thank you. So, if you were not on the 10 o'clock Central Time Threads meeting today, you missed it. Our good friend Jeff, fantastic share, get the recording. Not because I recommend it, because you will benefit. Great, great share at 10 Central today from our good friend Jeff S. And Luis, let the cat out of the bag. I wasn't going to tell you this soon, but we are going to talk about step 5 today. But don't run away. You hear these people in meetings talk about, oh, the dreaded 5th step. I mean, we talk about dreading step 5 more than we talk about dreading step 4 and step 8 and step 9. Oh, this is the step 5 tie, by the way, Teresa. Looks a little scary, doesn't it? Supposed to look scary. This is the tie we get rid of. I may do something dramatic halfway through today's meeting and just tear off this tie. I may cut this thing in half. No, I'm not going to cut it, but I'm cheap. I don't cut ties. I might tear it off because we get rid of so much fear. And we don't know this is going to happen. And it's the fear of secrecy. We'll see how that unfolds today in step 5 as we continue our series on sponsorship. Sponsorship, working with others, a stewardship of hope is what we're calling this series. Now, my sobriety date's March 18th, 1981, and that may sound like a while to some of you, but I need to tell you where I was last week at this time. Some of you know I was away in a town north and east of here, where I celebrated his 50th year of recovery with my good friend Craig W. and his wife Mary. And the reason it was so special, it is not the first 50-year coin I ever gave away. And Luis has taught me, don't compare. It's not better or worse than some other 50-year celebration. Luis has taught me here recently that to compare leads to unhealthy competition, which leads to very dangerous and damaging criticism. So I'm not comparing, but I am going to tell you, last Monday was a grand slam home run. Not just celebrating 50 years of continuous sobriety and a healthy spiritual awakening, but in the room at that meeting, Craig and I and Mary and Tina and members of Craig's family. 3 generations of Craig's family were in the room that day. And it reminds me going into step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. God, ourselves, and another poison. Alcoholism is an illness of relationships. Liquor's but a symptom. And that's why there's so many other successful 12-step recovery programs. Whether we get in here through the door of alcohol, whether we get in here through the door of Al-Anon, we're powerless over somebody else's drinking and behavior, whether we get in here through SA or OA or GA or RA or ABCDQFPA, once we're in the room, we discover we're in a 12-step program to produce a spiritual awakening in us that not only treats the illness of relationship, it makes it a recovery of relationship. And what we experienced a week ago right now in that room, in that meeting, in that home group, was not only the sharing of 60 people there, they all had a chance to share, a very crisp meeting. They all shared their experience, strength, and hope, knowing it or not, with the illness of broken relationships with God, myself, and others, and the recovery of healthy relationships with God, myself, and others. And it occurred to me coming down for the meeting today to open with this. I mean, we had a tremendous time last week. Craig and I talked this morning. I said, how long did it take you to come down from the emotional high of last Monday? And he said, yesterday. That's about right. The first sentence in the big book, forward to the first edition. More than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Seemingly hopeless state of mind and body is a lot more than just drinking. And so much of that seemingly hopeless comes about because of our frustration in our relationships. And, you know, the fellowship sometimes seems to forget that we need to help each other remember that we used to be seemingly hopeless. One reason we share what we used to be like is to remind one another, especially the newcomer. We've been there. We do know what that feels like. We do know what that kind of thinking is. We do know what it's like to experience that. Of course, you get out to page 164 at the end of the whole 12-step program before you get into the stories, or the rest of the stories. There are a lot of stories in the first 164 pages. Get out to page 164, we got this, we know only a little. Oh, that annoyed me for years. What do you mean? It's me. What do you mean we know only a little? Well, turns out that's really good news. Because I was such a know-it-all when I got here. I had to be a know-it-all. It's the only way I could deal with my fear. We'll get into that in a little bit. The good news is we may know only a little, but we know enough that we need help. And we finally know enough to ask for that help. And we finally learn enough, not only from our experience, the experience of others, to ask for that help, not just from other people like us, but we ask for that help from a power greater than ourselves. And so we talk about sponsorship. And what we're doing in this series is using Chapter 7, working with others, as a starting point for each step. We find a line in Chapter 7 that refers to the step, and then we go back in the book, as we will do today with Step 5, and kind of see how that line or that sentence or that example, that suggestion from Chapter 7, working with others, has already been covered in the big book. Thank goodness, it really is an instruction book, a user manual for human beings. Now, I know people say, well, the word sponsorship doesn't even show up in Chapter 7. No, but the practice does. I'm not put off by that at all. And when we begin looking at Bill's story, as we have started the last few weeks, you got this guy, Ebby, the visitor that comes to call on Bill. The cheery voice, it says on page 8, goes over to page 9. The cheery voice, he was sober. He called on the phone. He shows up at the door. Bill calls it fresh-skinned and glowing. And then he talks about his eyes. This is the first sponsorship call we have. We didn't call it that. In later years, Bill said Ebby was his first sponsor. But if you'll notice the page count in Bill's story from that beginning phone call from Ebby on the bottom of page 8 to the kind of the end of the Ebby conversations, because there's more than one, including meetings with Ebby after Bill is in the hospital recovering from drinking for the last time, which goes to page 13. So 1/3 of Bill's story is about Ebby's visit and the information Ebby shared with him and how Bill responded. It's not just the information Ebby shared, how Bill responded to that information. 1/3 of Bill's story is about his first sponsee call. Bill's the sponsee. Bill's not the sponsor, as we have come to know it. So sponsorship is literally, even in the doctor's opinion, he talks about how these folks carry their message to others. So the idea, the practice, the experience, the part of recovery that we call sponsorship today, been there from the very beginning. And so we get to step 5. Get ready, Veronica. Inhale. Good reading voice.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm an alcoholic. Subject
Almost.
to,
Almost.
oh,
So step 5 says on page 59, summary of the first 11 steps. It's a summary of the step. Page 59 does not tell me how to work the step, although I thought it did. I worked the steps on page 59 for a while. Admitted to God, myself, and another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. Okay, let's see. I can do that before the meeting's over. Boy, I can leave here finishing step 5. I did the step off the wall for a while. I don't recommend it. Didn't drink, so I guess it's better than nothing, but it's like going to the smorgasbord and just having a cracker. And so step 5 on page 59, number 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves. And by the way, somebody said the other day, how many steps does the word we appear in? And the answer was, this is for a trivia contest, only the first step. Oh, I wanted to call him and correct that. The word we is in the first step. It's implied. I mean, I don't mind reading step 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Anyway, in my experience, almost Veronica, I'll get there in just a minute. In my experience, our objective in sponsorship in step 5, 3 things. I think it's 3. Encourage, not just our words, but our example. Lead by example. Our first job as a sponsor is encourage the sponsee to thoroughly discuss their written step 4. They've written it. They went through all the agony and the frustration and the embarrassment and the shame. And I can't do this and I can't do that. And I'm never going to write this. They've been through all that in step 4. They got it done. Encourage them. Don't put step 4 in the trunk and drive it around for 30 days. I've done that. I've had sponsees do that. Not good. It's like lighting a stick of TNT. This is a new metaphor, it just came to me. We're going to dry run right here. It's like lighting a stick of TNT with a long fuse, but it's going and putting it in the trunk of your car and driving around for 30 days. Kathy, it's going to blow up. Anyway, do the 5th step right after you finish writing step 4. In my experience, our first job is encourage a sponsee to do that. Thoroughly discuss their written step 4. Second thing, listen. We need to listen. We need to just let them share without correction, without interruption too much, at least till the end. If we're going to encourage them to share, then we need to listen to the sponsee with courtesy, compassion, and consideration. Louise, 3 more C's. Listen with courtesy, compassion, and consideration. And the third thing is to be trustworthy. Promise them everything said here stays here. Ain't nothing you tell me going to go to anybody else. My sponsor is not going to hear it. My wife's not going to hear it. Your dog is not going to hear it. Well, if we can encourage the sponsee to share their 4-step information, listen to them when they do, and do it in a trustworthy manner. We will help the sponsee discover the exact nature, which is really the motives behind the stuff we write about in step 4. Step 5 is not simply a recitation of what we write in step 4. That might be good for the 5th grade essay contest. But this is more than a recitation, because what we're going to see in this process is how we help the sponsee, which began with the uncover, discover, and discard of steps 4 through 9. The uncovering begins in step 4. Some discovering occurs in step 5 as we help the sponsee understand the thing behind the thing, as Tina calls it. What's the motive behind my resentment, my fear, my inconsiderate treatment of others? The exact nature, as it calls it in the summary of the step. And then to guide, I guess there are 4 things. To guide the sponsee, yeah, there are 4 things. In addition to the encourage, listen, and trustworthy, the 4th thing, we help them, we guide them to prepare their list of objectionable things for step 6. And in the next 40 minutes, we're going to do all that. That's how simple the big book is if I just do the written part of the big book. So we're going to begin. Finally, Veronica, could you please read the first paragraph on page 72?
Happy to. Veronica Alcoholics is page 72, chapter 6, into action. Having made a personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have asserted in a rough by what the trouble is. We have put our finger on what weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter.
Thank you so much. Well, lo and behold, he begins step 5 with a reminiscence, with a recollection, with a review. Oh, 3 R's. I'm helpless in the face of my own alliteration. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. God, as my friend Stephen said, we were on a men's retreat this weekend. My friend Stephen says, during his share, and he gave a beautiful share on the 4th step and rigorous on it, said, you know, God has a great sense of humor. If you don't mind being part of the joke, well, I think I just proved that. That's a good thing. Thank you, Jane. I love it when Jane agrees with me. I feel so much better. He says, having made our personal inventory, I used to think that meant step 4. I believe today, this is my experience. When did I begin my personal inventory? First 5 words of step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol or anything or anybody else. I had never done that. I wasn't powerless over thunder. I never explicitly said to myself, you know, I don't think I'm powerless over thunder. But I didn't believe I was powerless over anything, so it may have well included thunder and lightning and snowfall and other drivers. I believe today I start my personal inventory with the first 5 words of step 1, no matter what 12-step program I come in. We admitted we were powerless is the beginning of the truth to me about me. And that's all this process is. Self-examination is simply admitting the truth. Finally admit it's not a new truth. I was powerless over alcohol the day I was born. I couldn't control drinking of the alcoholics in my family. Then I start drinking. I'm powerless over alcohol in me. And I'm powerless over the idea for alcohol in me. The beginning of my self-examination, admit I've always been powerless over alcohol. But I didn't admit it till I was 39 years old. Having made our personal inventory, which for me today, when I read that sentence, goes all the way back to step one. Another part of my personal inventory, need help from a higher power. Need help from a power greater than myself to restore me to sane thinking, beginning with the sane thought, don't take the first drink. That's personal inventory for me. Ask God for help. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Page 63, step 3, prayer. Relieve me of the bondage of self because I now see myself has problems by itself. Relieve me of the bondage of self because I now see myself has problems when it's by itself. That's self-examination. Myself isn't all bad. There's a lot of good. I'm mostly good. I had a guy demonstrate this one time. He held up a clear glass of water, an 8-ounce tumbler, clear glass, clear. I mean, you could see through it. He took that little bottle of red dye they use in cooking. Maybe they don't anymore. I don't care. Red dye number 5 or whatever it is. That little tiny bottle, you've seen it, and he takes that cap off. He puts one drop, right, of red dye in that water. And you see what happened? Goes pink in an instant. One character defect can ruin a clear glass of water. So there doesn't have to be much of me bad or wrong to mess up the whole stew. And then I wrote about that stuff in step 4, a more formal self-examination, a more structured answer to the questions, as we talked about last time. The questions that begin on page 64 and go all the way to page 71. So that little opening that Veronica just read, having made our personal inventory for me today, having done the first 4 steps, comma, what shall we do about it? Do not carry it around in the trunk of the car for a month. Because we've brought up not just the information we wrote on the page, we have brought up feelings that we haven't felt in a long time, remembered people we haven't remembered in a long time, remembered hurts and angers and fears and some shameful, inconsiderate behavior we may not have thought about in a long time. You can't watch this carefully, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. We should be a little uncomfortable after having written step 4. So the answer to what shall we do about it, he says, we have been trying to get a new attitude. Well, what's the new attitude? Mine begins with, I need help. There's a lot of components today to my new attitude, but it still begins with, I might need some help with this. I might not understand everything I've done in this 4th step. Hell, I don't even agree with some of the stuff I've written in this 4th step. But I've learned don't use whiteout. Write the 4th step. Don't go back and use whiteout on half of them. So we're trying to get a new attitude. Mine begins with, I need help. What's the next paragraph? A new relationship with our Creator. Well, where did we see that? Step 3. Top of step 3 in the promises. We have a new employer. Why do we have a new employer? Because the bottom of page 62, we decided to quit playing God. It didn't work. So as Jeff said so well this morning, I'm no longer the CEO. I'm an employee. I need help. I need a new relationship with the power greater than me that can help me. It says that on page 45. Help me with the bondage of self. And to discover the obstacles in our path. It turns out, as we learned in step 4, the obstacles are not them. The obstacle to my spiritual awakening is not her. The obstacle to my spiritual awakening isn't him, or the boss, or the neighbor, or the traffic, or the weather, or the politics. The obstacles are in me. And that is really good news. Because if my path to a healthy spiritual awakening, if my path to a new relationship with my higher power, if my path to spiritual recovery and sobriety has to go through her or him or them to change, I'm screwed. If I'm waiting on them to change, if I'm hoping for them to change, if I'm praying to God for them to change, and that's going to make me better, that's going to solve my problem, that's going to solve my relationship issues. I love it when somebody in a meeting says, "How you doing?" "I have issues." That's like saying you have shoelaces, unless all you own is loafers and pumps. Of course we have issues. If you're breathing, we have issues. My wife just said, "Calm down." She don't mind me getting wound up by 12:50. When I'm this wound up at 12:30, even she gets nervous, Kathy. As well she should. Relax, Noel, it'll be okay. If you are my problem, and I'm waiting for you to change, for me to get better, I'm screwed. So when he says discover the obstacles in our path, one of our jobs as a sponsor is to help the sponsee understand what good news the stuff we write in step 4 really is. We are discovering the obstacles on our path because, as you'll notice in the resentment inventory, it begins with them and the answers to the questions in column 1 and 2. But by column 3 on page 65, we're going to what part of me did it affect? And from that point forward, it's not about them anymore. It's about God and myself and then others. And that's why the order of relationships is spelled out so clearly in step 5. We have admitted certain defects, ours, not theirs. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. A rough way because we haven't got down to the motives yet. Put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory, notwithstanding other people's personal inventory. Here's it now. We've seen a lot of nows in the sponsorship study. Here's another now. Now, these are about to be cast out. Uncover, discover, and discard. Now, they're not all going to be cast out in step 5. He says they're about to be cast out. The first part of the casting out process is step 5, unless you say, well, I wrote about them in 4. Okay, I'll grant you that. But we're going to be casting out through 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. We're going to wake up in step 10 with a continue. Continue uncovering, discovering, and discarding is step 10 and 11. So we're not going to cast everything out in step 5, but we're sure going to get rid of a load, and we're going to begin a process of freeing ourselves from the part of ourself that blocks us from God, which is the spiritual awakening. In step 5, we wrote about it in 4, we asked for help with it in 3, came to the conclusion we needed it in 1 and 2. We wrote about it in 4, but in 5, this trusting sharing with one other person, all these secrets we've been carrying for years, that makes us lurk through life, afraid somebody's going to find out. Somebody's going to learn the truth. Somebody's going to break through our facade. Somebody's going to rip off my mask. We begin to become free of our secrets and the fear they carry with them. That's why we feel so much lighter after our fifth step. We have begun the casting out process, which looks like it's going to continue for a lifetime to me. Turns out to be a pretty good process. This requires action on our part. What's the action? For the sponsee, the action is sit down with your sponsor or trusted spiritual advisor. Now listen carefully. This is really complicated. Here's the action we help the sponsee take. Tell the truth. The action on our part is to tell one other person the truth, probably for the first time in our life. Tell the truth. We have to help the sponsee understand that's all they have to do. And we find out how inexperienced we are, how little experience, how little practice we really have at just telling another person the truth about ourselves. Even though we've written it before, it's still hard to talk about it. And he says, we will have admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our defects, which gets at the motives. You with me so far? You with me so far? So he says, personal inventory, it's mine, it's not hers. New attitude, I do need help. New relationship, that's what I'm looking for. Discover the obstacles in the path that are blocking me from the new relationship, the help I need from God. Certain defects, what the trouble is, so on and so forth. Now, we said we would open our step 5 discussion with a sentence from chapter 7. Look at page 96. I wish Mike C. were here. He loves tiptoeing through the big book. Look at page 96. Well, I think it's page 96. Okay, yeah, right in the middle of the page. How could I miss it, Debbie? Middle of page 96, you're talking with the newcomer. Having had the experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you are available if he wishes to make a decision. That was step 3. And tell his story. Tell his story is step 4 and 5. He says, do not insist upon it if he wants to talk about it with somebody else. This may, it may not be about you. Just saying. You are available if he wishes to tell his story. So what do? We help the sponsee grow in trusting the God of their understanding by being as a sponsor. We behave in a trustworthy manner so they can trust another person. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I sure didn't trust me. I didn't trust you. I didn't trust her. I didn't trust them. I didn't trust God. I didn't trust anybody or anything. And I didn't know how untrusting I was until I'd been here for a while. So we encourage. Go to it. Wait till we get to page 75 and see how that sentence is worded. It's an encouragement sentence. He says, we go to it. We listen without judgment or criticism. We reassure them we can be trusted. Everything said here stays here. And we guide them in preparing their step 6 list of objectionable things. I want to talk about those 4 things: encourage, listen, demonstrate trust, and guide them to make the objectionable things list. Reason the sponsor can encourage the sponsee to share step 5. Kathy, you're going to read for us today, my dear.
That is the plan.
All right, bottom of page 72, 4 or 5 lines up. Could you begin with the best reason? You see that on the bottom of 72?
Got it?
And then read over, finish the top paragraph on 73, please.
Thank you very much. Hi, friends. Kathy. Grateful recovering alcoholic. The best reason, first, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives, trying to avoid this humbling experience. They have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. Thank you.
Well, that turned out to be a very true paragraph for me. But it's one of the places where I did what chapter 5 warned me against. He says in chapter 5, half measures availed us nothing. I must confess, in the early days, my first inventory or two, I may have hedged a little. I may have, and I'm not saying I even knew that at the time. There was just some stuff, for whatever reason, consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, I just wasn't ready to let bubble to the surface. But notice a couple of words Kathy used. Humility. They hung on to some of the worst items in stock because of egoism and fear. Egoism, oh, I'm too prideful, I can't tell anybody that. Oh, I'm too afraid, what if somebody finds out about that? All understandable. Having those feelings are not a character defect, called human: embarrassment, shame, guilt. Letting those stand in our way of letting God help us tell the truth anyway, that's a character defect. That's self-will. And that self-will run riot. Self-will run riot does not have to be breaking 30 chairs in a barroom brawl. That's a good example of self-will run riot. But self-will run riot can be too much pride, too much fear to tell the truth about myself to one other trusting, trustworthy human being. And that's why we have to encourage. Remember, no matter how cocky they behave, trust is in short supply in the early days, sometimes for a lot longer than that. They only thought they had humbled themselves. This isn't about humiliation. Humbly, I need help. I need to tell somebody what I need help with. It's not enough just to say, oh, I need help. That's like staring at a can of green beans, expecting it to open itself. Good can of green beans, but I need help to open the can. And then on the bottom, look at the very bottom of page 73 over to the top of page 74. Here's a must. Over 100 musts in the big book. We must be entirely honest with somebody if, conditional, we expect to live long or happily, it goes on to say, but it's not worth living if I'm rolling around with all these poisonous secrets. We talk about lurking notion of the first drink. I was a living lurking notion myself. So we encourage the sponsee to simply tell the truth about themselves for once and for all, as best they can. This is spiritual progress. We're not looking at spiritual perfection. Encourage them to tell the truth about what they've written and what they think they understand about themselves in step 4 as best they can at the time. Okay, the second thing, how the sponsor listens. It's not just listening, it's how. If we sit there like this, don't say a word, but the body language says, "You poor miserable maggot. I can't believe I even let you sit in a chair in my house." That's probably not listening with compassion and understanding and charity. It could well be misunderstood. How the sponsor listens to the sponsee during step 5. Sharon, you want to read for us?
I would be delighted, Bill.
Middle paragraph on page 74. If we cannot or would not, read that. Yeah, read that paragraph.
Hold on. Okay. Hi, guys. Sharon, grateful recovering alcoholic. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others.
Thank you. Now, when he says there, tell someone who will understand, we've already had an explanation of that in the paragraph ahead of this, where he says, a person quick to see and understand our problem. They don't have to have our answer. Listening to a 5th step does not mean I'm going to provide a solution to anything. It means I'm going to help them understand by listening to themselves talk about the stuff in them out of the 4th step that's blocking them from help from God. So this notion of understanding, help them understand. We're not going to solve anything necessarily in step 5, except to start learning to live without secrecy. And they're not going to try to change our plan. If you read the bottom of 74 and the top of 75, understand and approve, bottom of 74, what we're driving at, and not try to change our plan. I have heard people, I've not done it myself, and I've never had it done to me, but I have heard people talk about someone listening to their 5th step and then trying to talk them out of something. Oh, you weren't that bad. Well, of course you did that, but you wouldn't have done that if she hadn't done this first. No, 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 no. This is not about feeling better. One of the problems with treatment centers who do not understand the problem of self-will run riot and the way we block ourselves from God's help, this is more than psychology, it's more than psychiatry. Nothing wrong with psychology or psychiatry, but the danger in talking somebody out of the more painful emotional parts of their 4th step is to have an inefficient loss of secrecy in the 5th step. No matter what she did, I did what I did, and I need to fully 100% own that. I don't need rationalization and justification to minimize what I did during my 5th step. If that doesn't make sense, ask a question later. But it's really important to understand we'll not try to change our plan. We'll not try to talk us out of admitting, no matter what they did, no matter what the provocation was, and I include abuse. I'm not saying bad stuff didn't happen. I'm not saying really bad stuff didn't happen. But for the moment, this isn't forever, but for the moment, we do the best we can with God's help to help the sponsee set aside so they can at least fully examine and accept and understand the part we played, because that's where the freedom comes from. We're not doing this to get them to change. We're not doing this to make the past go away. We're not doing this to pretend the bad things didn't happen. We're just setting that aside. We're not erasing it. We're just setting it aside for a minute. The person can get honest, let go of the secret about, and sometimes the part we played with, I was present, particularly as a child. But that may be enough to admit I didn't do anything. I didn't deserve this. I didn't cause it. I didn't provoke it. I didn't bring it on. I was just there. I was in the room when the tornado hit. I didn't do anything to bring on the tornado. This is really important. They will not try to change our plan. So, Hermione, how the sponsor demonstrates trust with and for the sponsee in step 5. Are you there, Hermione?
Yes, Bill.
I'm looking for it here. Yeah. You just read the bottom paragraph of 74 over to the top of 75. We'll repeat a little bit of this, but it's okay. Notwithstanding, the bottom of page 74.
Okay, Hermione Alcoholic. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at, that he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Intimate and confidential. That's what this is. Deepest, darkest, some people, deepest, darkest secrets. Intimate, confidential. Ain't going out of this room. Isn't going to be repeated. Close-mouthed understanding. There it is again. These are all aspects of being a trustworthy listener, a trustworthy encourager, able to keep a confidence. In this day and age, particularly, Facebook, Twitter, teeter-totter, whatever. Name your 30 favorite social media. I think they're antisocial too often. Anyway, we live in a culture that does not appear to value keeping a confidence. When people think it's important to text 5 friends and show them they're in the vegetable aisle at the store, here's what I'm doing. Sorry. No? Have I crossed the line, Scott? Okay. Scott, don't take it personally. You don't do that. You do it from the bread aisle. The value of learning to keep a confidence, probably more important than ever before in history. And we learn how to do that. We can learn how to do that here. We can learn how to do it ourselves. We can learn how to help others do it by practice and by example. So we get to step 5. And by the way, it's only 1 sentence long. It's easy to miss. Ian, you want to read for me?
Yeah, where am I reading from? Sorry.
You're going to read 1 sentence first, and then we're going to pause, and I'm going to ask you to read some more. But the first sentence I want you to read is a little above the middle of page 75, and this 1 sentence is step 5. It begins with, we pocket. Could you read that 1 sentence, please?
We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past.
Stop. That's it. That's step 5. This is written out of the sponsee, not the sponsor, but we help the sponsee understand. And remember what I said before, we're going to go to it. We're not going to tiptoe up to the plate, afraid we're going to get hit by the ball. I was a little kid. That's how I went to the plate every time. I'm going to hit by the ball. Played Corey League for 5 years. I hit 1 home run. I still remember it. What a day. Trouble is, Luis, I'm rounding third base. I looked at the outfield to see if the ball's coming back, and I damn near didn't make it to home. I almost got out at the plate. My 1 home run in history, and I almost blew it because I was paying too much attention to somebody else instead of minding my own business. In any event, we pocket our pride. I always wear a shirt with a pocket when I'm doing a 5th step. We don't let go of our pride, but we set it aside for a little while. And I would write, if I was rewriting the book, I would say we pocket our pride and our fear. And of course, pride is really just a manifestation of fear. I'm such a big deal. What if they find out I'm not such a big deal? I'm such a big deal, pride. What if they find out I'm not such a big deal, fear? So pride and fear are kind of 2 sides of the same coin. In any event, we pocket whatever self-will is blocking us from doing this. Okay? And go to it. Comma, look at the word illuminating. Does this guy like illumination? For those of you that are listening later, I'm showing the sinister tie, the secrecy tie. This guy does not like, I'm not going to say it's Dracula, but the secrets do not like the light of day. And I love the fact of all the words he could have used, Al, illuminating. Illuminating what? Every. Doesn't say some of. Doesn't say the worst of. Doesn't say the least of. Doesn't say just the one she remembers. It doesn't say just the one my boss knows about. Look at this. This is one of the most powerful, inclusive, non-ambiguous sentences in the entire big book, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of my past. And I would add, the best you can at this time. Because a year from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, there's going to be more. Went to meetings in Fort Myers for a year who used the analogy. He says, my history is like a 55-gallon drum of oil. He said, in the first inventory, I took off the top couple inches. That's as deep as I could go. The next inventory, I took off another couple inches. He says, I didn't realize in the beginning it was a 55-gallon drum. And he, at that time, he was, sharing with 30 years recovery. He says, I'm still emptying the barrel. Another friend talks about peeling the onion. You only peel the layer or 2 on top. And I'm doing a 5th step with him when he was about 15 years sober. And he said to me one day, he said, you remember that onion we used to talk about peeling? I said, yeah. He said, just after 15 years, he says, that onion's a lot bigger than I thought it was when I got here. No kidding, David. Steve knows who I'm talking about. Okay, Ian, that is step 5. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Now, Ian, read us the promises of step 5. Next sentence.
Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look at the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe.
Wow. I ask you to do this for yourself. When we get off the meeting today, whether you can do it right away or later on, take a quiet time, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and reread those promises slowly and put yourself in them as where you are today. We love to talk about the promises following step 9 on page 83 and 84, but I want you to really allow yourself the privilege and the pleasure of absorbing these step 5 promises today. I get goosebumps when I talk about this. Walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Remember what she read on page 72 when Veronica started us off today? A new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator. This is the God I didn't even want to exist somewhere between step 1 and step 2. And I'm only at step 5 in a 12-step recovery process. And I already feel like I'm walking hand in hand. This may be spiritual progress. Thank you, Ian. Beautifully done. Once we have taken this step with holding nothing, we are delighted. Talk about step 5 with your people with joy, not fear, not embarrassment. Talk about step 5 with joy because it's a joyful experience. We are becoming free of the bondage of self. And they haven't changed at all. And what they did hasn't changed at all. And we're becoming free anyway. And then it says we go home, we sit quietly for an hour and review what we've done. And there's 5 questions at the bottom, page 75. We ask if we've omitted anything. Here's my translation of these 5 questions. And this is how this is how I work with my guys today. I help them with these 5 questions because it's preparing the list for the objectionables we're going to pray for a willingness to let go of in step 6, which we'll do next time. We ask if we have omitted anything. Well, to me, that means if we omitted prayer, it doesn't just mean I left out some part of my history, because I did step 4 for too many years without the prayers. So I asked the guys, are you sure when you wrote your 4th step, you asked God to save you from being angry and resentment? You asked God to take away your fear in the fear inventory? You asked God to set your code of behavior for you in the sexual conduct inventory? Have I omitted anything for me today means have I omitted the prayers given to me in the big book to use? The prayers given to me in the big book to help me ask God for help so I learn how to, you know how you learn to ask God for help? Watch this carefully. You ask God for help. Well, I don't know how to ask God for help. I've never done it. I know. Well, what if he's not there? Ask him anyway. What if he's not listening? Ask him anyway. What if he doesn't hear me? Ask me anyway. Ask him anyway. What if he doesn't like what I'm asking? Ask him anyway. What if he disagrees with me? Ask him anyway. What if he doesn't do it my way? Oh, ask him anyway. You know how you learn to ask God for help? Step 3, page 63. God, relieve me of the bondage of self. There's a beginning. Step 4, top of page 67. God, save me from being angry. Page 68, fear inventory. God, take away my fear and what you would have me be. Have we omitted anything? Prayers are given to us in the big book to use us to help use the big book. The prayers in the big book are given to us to help us learn to use the big book. Ask God for help. Don't worry if he hears you, because he does. He hears you when you don't ask for help. There's a kicker. We'll talk about that another time. Second question, bottom of page 75, is our work solid so far? Have we told the truth? Third question, are the stones properly in place? Bill's back to building this arch through which we're going to walk to freedom that he started building back in step 3. Now he's putting some more stones in place. Are the stones properly in place? Have we lied? You may say, well, telling the truth and not lying are the same thing. No, not to an alcoholic. He's getting us coming and going here. Don't worry about it. Just answer the question. Have we skipped on the foundation? Have we, rotten cement? Have we told a partial truth? I don't know about you, but I hedge. They got hedge fund managers on Wall Street today. I was managing my own hedge fund in 1952 when I was 10 years old. I was hedging on the truth, Scott. Final question, have we tried to make mortar without sand? Have we uncovered our motives? And so the sponsor guides the sponsee to uncover and admit their motives that are the exact nature of our wrongs, such as, in my case, insecure sarcasm. I use sarcasm because I feel insecure. I want to get you before you can get me. And it gets me attention. That's all based on some insecurity that I may never outgrow. I'm just better than I used to be. Greedy theft. Theft is always driven by greed, whether it's a candy bar or a Cadillac. If I stole it, it was driven by greed. I can't live without that Baby Ruth. I can't live without that Coupe de Ville. That ought to be a country western song. Critical blame. I don't just blame. I blame to make you feel it because you need the criticism. Kathy, famous now. I've got to learn to put down my blame thrower. Atta girl. I've been quoting you all over the land the last 2 weeks. People want to know, who is she? Where can I find her? Lustful sex. There's sex and there's lustful sex. I don't have to tell you the difference. Or if I do, call me later. It'll be private. These become the context and grow into the content of our objectionable things list for step 6. And so on page 89, we close with this today, except for a few observations. As you're listening to a 5th step, as a sponsor, helping a man or a woman through these 12 steps for the first time or the 10th time, it doesn't matter. I find it helpful to review page 89. Carry this message to other alcoholics. Listening to a 5th step as a sponsor is carrying the message forward from the people that listened to my 5th step when I was a sponsee, and the people who listen to my 5th step today when I'm still a sponsee. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. Page 89. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, so on and so forth, an experience you must not miss. Step 5 is always a powerful experience for the sponsee as well as myself. So here's a few observations. It's going to take about 5 or 6 more minutes, so this is going to be one of those 70-minute workshops. In step 5, the sponsor helps the sponsee grow their trust in God and another person, as we did as children before we were disappointed, embarrassed, shamed, or abused. This becomes new behavior that goes all the way back to our youngest years. We admit and accept the truth of our powerlessness and our unmanageability in step 1. Step 2, we come to believe. Step 3, we pray in faith that there is a power that will relieve us from the bondage of self. We learn to act in trust in steps 4 and 5. We move from belief to faith into trust in steps 4 and 5. We begin to experience enough belief, faith, and trust to stop living with secrecy. This is where I should throw this tie away. I'll just pretend it's not here. With less secrecy, we have less doubt, less anxiety, more hope. Step 5, our past becomes our ally instead of our enemy. Step 5, we come to believe from the past. We grow in faith in God in the present and learn to trust God and another person to move forward into our new, sober, God-centered future. Before step 5, my view of myself was inaccurate, inappropriate, and impossible. I was either too good or too bad. During step 5, I become more honest, more realistic, and healthy about my strengths and my limitations. In step 5, my willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness change both my attitude and my actions regarding trust. It's not either or, it's not one or the other. As a sponsee once said, nothing has changed and everything is different. They're not changing, I am. More so than in steps 1 through 4, during step 5, I become increasingly willing to seek attention, appreciation, and affirmation from God, not other people. In step 5, we help the sponsee realize their spiritual growth is less like a straight line and more like a circular spiral staircase, ever winding and growing upon itself. In step 5, we help the sponsee admit and accept the exact nature of their wrongs, quote unquote, with enough willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness to let go of their fear of their secrets and realize more fully the hope of God's help in their restoration to sanity. And finally, in step 5, we help the sponsee realize how our step 3 prayer, back on page 63, seeking God's power, God's love, and God's way of life, is continuing to be fulfilled one step at a time. Thank you very much. Next time, we're going to talk about step 6, helping the sponsee become willing, with God's help, to let go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. And will you now close this part of the meeting with a prayer or reading of your choice?
Go back to page 75, the step 5. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of the past. And when we do that, and when we help another person do that, we both feel delighted. We both realize we can look the world in the eye. We both feel alone. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us, not just them. Once again, we both begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We have a spiritual experience and start to realize it. Sometimes it actually tingles. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared, not just the idea, but the fear is starting to disappear. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe, and we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Amen, baby.
Thank you, Bill. Now everyone can unmute and thank Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bill.
Bill.
Bill, great job.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so
Bill.
much,
So
Bill.
much
Very much,
wisdom.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Appreciate it.
So much wisdom.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bill.
Bill.
Thank you, Bill.